Good afternoon and welcome to you all in this Swami Vivekananda Auditorium of the Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Centenary College. Respected Principal Maharaj, Swami Kamalastananda Ji of the Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Centenary College, respected Vice Principal Maharaj and Controller of Examination of our college, Swami Vedanunagananda Maharaj, respected DBT Star College coordinators of the different departments, respected faculty members of different departments of our college, respected guest faculty members of the different universities, other colleges and the other institutes, my dear research scholars and my beloved and dear students of the different departments. Welcome you all once again in this auditorium in this afternoon session. It's a very, very pleasure moment for all of us that today we are gathered here to hear the lecture of a very eminent person, Dr. Manos Pratim Das of All India Radio, Akashvani Bhavan, Kolkata. Now, we begin our today's program through a very small felicitation program, and for that, may I request our Principal Maharaj, Swami Kamalastananda Ji, to felicitate our guest of honor, Dr. Manos Pratim Das. So for that, I am requesting Rohan to help our Principal Maharaj for this purpose. Now I am requesting our respected Principal Maharaj, Swami Kamalastananda Ji, for the official welcome address. Maharaj.
Respected Dr. Manos Pratim Das on the dais, in front of me, my dear colleagues and my dear all students. So, this type of offline seminar, just I am thinking, sitting here, that in 2020 March, we have last conducted here. 2020 March, maybe 15th or 16th January. And after that, again, after long 2 years, again we are conducting this offline seminar here, along with all of you and teaching staff and also our guest speaker. So this today's program related to this. So now we can understand that what is the difference between information and communication. Now we can understand. Previously it is totally theory. If I tell there is difference between communication and information, student could not understand. Now the youth student can understand the information is not communication. Communication is something different. It is not a definition. It is a day-to-day dealings, feelings of our life. So today's topic is pertaining to this art of science communication. So we are all students of science. I am also reading so many science topics, so many things. Also you are graduate, after graduation you also pursuing different subject in science. But these are related to all things, academic, degree and everything. But science, if you want to learn, then we have to communicate this knowledge of science to other. Without communication, learning is not a learning. Then we can say it is sometimes or many cases it is mere information. Because we cannot use all this information in our day-to-day life. In all peoples, in all walks of life. In all walks of life we use different language, different feelings, different idea. So we think that these things actually different and day-to-day life is different. But if we learn science properly, then we can easily communicate the science, a small boy also. Because we are talking with the small boy, joking with the small boy also loves you, you also loves you, him or her. But we think that this small boy, what he knows about science, physics, chemistry, we think that we are master in physics, chemistry, so we cannot, we so master that we cannot communicate a small boy. So here, question actually if we ask, really we learning science or not? Because we cannot communicate all walks of people. So when you communicate what you learn in science in your academic pursuit, then your learning of science is fulfilled. So for this purpose, we arrange this special seminar. And especially our India, we started very lately. We are actually poor in communication in all types of things, especially science. And all different countries, Australia and other countries, they are rapidly growing in especially science reporting, and so everywhere they are so progressing, but we are so lacking in this type of science reporting or science communication in other countries, because we think that what we learn, maybe it cannot be expressed others. We believe that in this way. And for this purpose we arrange this, and we amidst us Dr. Manasprati Das. He is a good teacher in communication, he is a good professional in All India Radio, not only All India Radio, different works he actually deliver lecture for popularized science. So we are actually waiting to listen from him, because this communication is a skill. You understand? It is a skill. So this skill requires some techniques. If we follow the technique properly, then we can properly communicate this information to other. So for this purpose, I requested Manas Babu, please tell before our students that if some student motivated, then this thing will be properly actually maintained, and they can communicate the science in their daily life. So now once again I express my heartiest regard, welcome to Manas Babu on behalf of the college, on behalf of all faculty members, on behalf of all you students here, for coming here. He is a very busy person, his profession also very busy, but still he has come by person here in this beautiful afternoon. And I am very much enjoying, if you 2020 or before, if you sitting here talking in this way, then I am very much irritated. But now I am enjoying that some students are gossiping in this way, because after 2 years we are meeting each other. I can very much enjoying you that you are sitting here and listening this talk. So with these few words, I also welcome you also. I conclude here, and I thanks and express my regard to Dr. Manos Pratim Das. Thanks all of you.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your welcome address. Now the time comes for which all of we are waiting. So now I would like to request our today's chief guest of honor, Dr. Manos Pratim Das, to the podium to deliver the lecture. Sir.
नेट नहीं है असुविधा फिर यही प्रॉब्लम है ऐसा लगता सिस्टम है और प्रोसीड्यूर तो रिपीटेड देखুন তো এটা হয় কিনা স্লাইড শোটা হয় কিনা না হয় তাহলে Respected Principal Sir, Vice Principal Sir, members of the faculty, the students, very good afternoon to all of you. My regards. And I'll start from where Principal Sir left off, that we are not waiting for any speaker to speak. We are waiting for the time to come. After 2020, similarly, as Principal Sir said, in March, we are having a seminar at the State University. In fact, we have a unit called Indian Science News Association. It was established by none other than Meghnad Shaha with Acharya Prafullo Chandra Rai as the president. Meghnad Shaha and B.B. Rai, the two great scientists. And we were having Science Communicators Meet. It's an annual event. So after that, we were wondering what path the pandemic will be taking, and all of a sudden news started pouring in that very afternoon that our next programs are all cancelled. So that was a setback. Initially we were disappointed, but the disappointment grew and turned into distress. We were literally going through a frustrating period, and we all were waiting for such a day to come when we can sit down face to face, talk among us, exchange something, share something. And I believe we are here with that spirit. Of course, everyone knows any Ramakrishna Mission unit, be it an educational institution or some other type of institution, there is perfect discipline, and that is on behold in front of me. So this is nothing new for me. Wherever I go, or any other fellow goes to any institution run by such a body like Ramakrishna Mission, he or she expects such discipline, and it's there on display. Now what I propose to do today is to combine 2 or 3 PowerPoints, since what I aim to share it's sort of mix and match. I mean, had it been a regular class at the Calcutta University or say Bardwan University in MA, I would have done it differently. But since you are all science students, and that is an advantage for me today, I won't have to speak much. You can get the feel of what I'm saying. So I thought, why not use this opportunity to mix a few PowerPoints and try to tell the audience what art of science communication means. But before we must have a background. To set that background, I'll start from here. Science news in broadsheet and tabloids. You all know what are broadsheets and tabloids. The newspaper that comes to our home every morning is a broadsheet actually. There's a definition for broadsheet. The width, the length, there's a definition. The definition has undergone change through decades, but there's a standard for it. That is a broadsheet. Generally, we don't see tabloids these days. The evening newspapers were in tabloid shape. There are quite a number of tabloids in circulation in Maharashtra, in Delhi. There are, of course, a few tabloids here as well. So I'll start with something very different, not aimed at sharing the art of science communication. This is just have a look and then I'll speak. So what H.G. Wells, we all know about H.G. Wells. I mean, when the topic of science writing, fantasy, fiction, science fiction comes up, H.G. Wells has to be present there. So what did H.G. Wells had to say about science journalism? He said this, and it's there on display. You can see here. A popular science, this is very important because a person like H.G. Wells, who had all his life written about science, tried to tell people in a very popular way what science means, what scientific discovery means, and what the duty of a scientist is, felt frustrated at one point of time and had written that popular science, it is to be feared, is a phrase that conveys a certain flavor of contempt to many a scientific worker. I'll just read out this line and that is enough. What did he mean to say? He meant to say that scientists in general are not very favorable to science communication or science journalism or even popular science writing. They think that it's a waste of time, it's no use writing science for the people, that way science won't prosper. Forgive me for saying this, but this is the truth, even in today's world. But as Principal Sir had pointed out, that in many developed countries, they are trying out some models. They are trying to tell scientists that you need to come out of your shell. I mean, this is not demeaning anything. I mean, you just come out of your shell and try to communicate science so that the lay person understands. And if the lay person understands, he or she or in a group will contribute to further scientific research, and once they appreciate what scientific research is or scientific values are, what they will do is they will follow what you instruct. Say for instance, in case of COVID, we are all wearing masks here, but the point is, do we know what these masks are made of and how it is actually protecting us from the virus? Does it have any anti-bactericidal effect? I mean, a bactericidal effect? Can it kill bacteria? Can it kill virus? No, it just protects us from barring the virus from entering our system. So that's it. So when you dispose of the mask, you have to be very, very careful how you are disposing it, because it can lead to the spread of virus in a more vigorous way. If you just carelessly just throw it out on the street, and that is happening all around. So if the lay person understands science, if the citizenry understand science, it would lead to further development. But he was very frustrated because the scientists didn't take it very seriously. And in the next slide you will see he points out that it was not the same in every epoch of time. Like he mentions that Darwin, I mean there are others as well, Darwin notably addressed themselves in many cases to the general reader rather than to their colleagues. The scientific researchdom or intelligentsia, they feel that it is our duty to write for the journal, not for the layperson. It is not necessary, and even it's not our duty. But he said there was a time when the scientists felt that we should be sharing our knowledge with lay people, and we should collect what feedback they have to offer for us, and we should take it seriously. And he also says there is still a considerable demand for popular works, but it is met in many cases by a new class of publication from which philosophical quality is largely eliminated. I will underline the word worker. I mean, if you are just a worker, if you don't have the philosophy in mind, what change science can bring to the society, what actually science means, what you will do is, like a worker, might be like a bee just collecting honey and putting it into the honeycomb. You are not doing anything else, not thinking for the society, not for the furtherance of science. You are just working in a routine manner. There is, what is lacking is philosophy. So he said that even, when does he write it? I'll just go back. You can see the timeline. He was born in 1866 and he passed away in 1946. He was writing this in Nature towards the end of the 19th century. So he was frustrated even then. And the frustration is even there, it's lingering through the ages, through the centuries. And we need to do something about it, and that's why I said it was published in Nature. And Nature attached good importance to it. That's why it came out in print. Now, this is the picture. I mean, scientist and journalist are riding the same vehicle but in opposite direction. I mean, this is not a very happy situation, but it happens. I mean, journalists are ridiculed for good reason, of course. Often journalists don't report it dutifully, don't take the information that is handed to them in a serious manner, and naturally the scientists ridicule them like this. They see a scientist expects the next paper to be published in 18 months, and what does the journalist do? He writes an article every 18 hours. just like a mill. He's working and articles are coming out of that mill. Area of expertise such and such, I believe you will understand better than me because you are in the process more than I am. But what is his expertise? Writing really fast. And this is of course ridicule. This is not really true. Idea of an interesting article about cancer, this and this, all the details. Scientists find leukemia gene is your child at risk. I mean, I'll share another story. Professor Mandal was there at Rajabaja Science College. He was also there in Baligan Science College for some time. Professor Mandal narrated this to me. He was a geneticist, and once he was talking about finding a bacteria in the heap of garbage in Dhapa. And he was sitting at the corporation office, and he was just chatting about this, that this bacteria is useful. A journalist was present there. He didn't know that he was a journalist. That fellow asked him, sir, is this bacteria very useful? But he said, yes, of course this is useful. If you can use it properly, it can help you in producing your soft drinks in a neat manner. And the journalist went back and told his editor, I have a scoop. And the editor was not that science-minded. I mean, generally editors come from the, till even say 2 or 3 decades ago, editors generally came from the humanities stream, from English, from philosophy, like that. And he said, oh, I find it interesting. So we can have a story, I can give you some space. And he penned the story, and it came out like this: wonder bacteria discovered at Dhapa among heap of garbage, and it will fetch crores of rupees in soft drinks industry. Professor R.K. Mandal was he couldn't believe his eyes. And he said, he again called the corporation office. He said, who was there? I didn't tell any journalists about this. And this bacteria is a very common bacteria. It can be found at many places. And whether you want to use it for soft drinks, that's your choice. This is not a formula. It's missing in some Western countries and it's available here. It's not like like a gold mine. So this is these things happen. So we should be very careful when we write science for the press, for the common people. We should be very careful about these things. Now, I won't spend much time on this. I'll go over to another PowerPoint, of course. Now, as scientists look at it, these are statistics you can have on the net. I have given the sources as well. So these are easily available on the net. I have taken some for my own purpose. And it says that more than half of US neuroscientists and more than 60% of German scientists, this is the side of the scientist, what they believe, how they behave, how they approach the thing. It says that these neuroscientists perceive the so-called Ingelfinger rule. In every discipline of study, you find such rules and things. Ingelfinger rule is still effective. According to that rule, acceptance of a publication is by a scientific journal is threatened if the research results have already been reported. You should not go to the press. It should be published in the journal first. Any journal that is within your reach, within your grasp. Approximately 2/3 of German scientists in general, they think that they are not doing anything that can be used for general education. So they find it useless to talk with the journalists or the educators, mass educators. Now, as a result, scientists don't generally speak with the press or the communicators. Now, there's a difference between what science journalism means and what science communication means. As very intelligent students, you are quite aware that when a piece of news comes out in your favorite newspaper, in a particular column or on a weekly page, you can understand that something is being reported, some research has been done in say IIT Kanpur or say CMB Hyderabad or say MIT or say Large Hadron Collider site, and that is being reported. So that is science journalism. But what a science communicator does is take up the issue, take up the point, and try to communicate with the lay persons, try to let them understand, they draw some perspective, and they try to explain what is there. A plus b whole square is okay. E is equal to mc square is okay. Newton's third rule is okay. But the point is, many a fellow won't be able to understand the real implication of this or how these were actually formulated. I mean, nature didn't give you these rules. Scientists actually framed these rules from generalization. So how did it come? What was the perspective? How the story of the genesis? So that's the role of a science communicator, and I consider myself as a science communicator, and through my 3 decades of career I have been doing this successfully or unsuccessfully, whatever. Now, I have also found scientists are not very eager to speak to the journalist. They have their own reasons, and I don't oppose the reasons. These are valid reasons. But in some cases, this overstate or oversimplify things, that is also not properly actually expected. Now there are exceptions. I mean, not all media organs or all periodicals, they are not publishing rubbish day in, day out. See, there's a very well-known anecdote, and to reach that anecdote I have to first tell about this fellow, Adolf Uch, and he was appointed by a very renowned newspaper, the New York Times, and he actually, see, in the red letters, in brick red letters, here I have pointed out that Van Anda corrected a mathematical error in a lecture of Albert Einstein's that the New York Times was about to print, after of course checking with Einstein. Now see, this fellow Adolf Uch was no scientist, but he was a serious science journalist. He found that after a lecture, and the content of the lecture was going to be printed, he found that something is amiss. I mean, the order is not properly there. See, it's not a brief history of time where you find only one equation, E is equal to mc square. Do you know the story of the publication of brief history of time and E is equal to mc square formula only remaining there? Actually, what happened was that Stephen Hawking was writing a book, and he had 10 equations, naturally equations pertaining to physics of astronomy, and the publisher Bantam Books told him that, sir, this is absolutely okay, this is absolutely neat, fine with us, but what we would like to inform you is that with each equation you lose 1 million readers. Now mark it, the publisher has his or her own interest, and he points out that with each equation, each such equation, you lose 1 million reader. And who wants to lose 1 million reader with an equation? So he said, let me see if we can bring the numbers of equation down. And finally, only one equation remained, and that was E is equal to mc square, nothing else. So that is again dynamics of the publishing industry. So that we have to keep in mind as well. Now, Van Anda corrected him, not corrected Einstein, corrected the procedure of printing, corrected the content that was to come out in print. So, people like him are serious journalists who give our profession a glamour. There are, of course, many names to be announced here who have done wonders in their field, and you can find out for yourself. Now, one fellow, since we are standing here in Bengal, we should be able to recall the contribution of Gopal Chandra Bhattacharya, who was roped in by none other than Jagadish Chandra Bose. He was not a qualified scientist, but he was given a DSc in later life by the University of Calcutta. So Gopal Chandra Bhattacharya was first roped in by J.C. Bose. And then in later years, when Satyendranath Bose established the Bangio Vigyan Porishad, that was in 1948, he requested Gopal Chandra Bhattacharya to take over the charge of editing. And see, editing can play such a crucial role. I mean, Gopal Chandra Bhattacharya had narrated this to his son, Mihir Babu, and Mihir Babu he has also passed away. He was very close to me, and he used to tell me how Gopal Chandra Bhattacharya corrected the articles of renowned scientists. And he used to say that, sir, your article is perfect, very neat, nothing wrong with it. But tell me, someone who has the knowledge of science till class 8 or class 7 or might be lower, how will he or she be able to appreciate what you have written? Now initially the scientist got very jittery. What do you mean to say? You don't know who I am? I am a scientist with 30 years of experience, 40 years of experience. There are several PhD scholars working under me. So you are trying to correct me, my article. So these things you have to face if you ever become an editor, even of a renowned journal like Scientific American. Scientific American is a semi-popular journal, I would say. It's not a journal per se, it's a semi-popular journal. So even there you have to face these type of things. So these are the realities that exist. If ever, even one student from this hall, this audience, wishes to take up such a profession, and this profession actually works wonders for the society if you can do it well, he will have to remember that the procedure is not very simple. Now, guidelines for working for the media, these are simple guidelines. If you are a scientist, if you are approaching it from your viewpoint, that consider in advance what you want and don't want to communicate to help you control the interview. This is for the fellow who is a scientist and who doesn't want gibberish to come out in print. So you have to tell people you have to keep in mind what to communicate, explain things simply in non-technical everyday language. Journalists are also very fond of terminologies. Suppose you give away a bombastic word. I come to you, you are working in microbiology. This fellow who has done an MSc, who is a student who is specializing in microbiology from the Vivekananda Centenary College, has this to say. I tell my editor or my director, sir, this is just wonderful. Once this comes out or once this is broadcast, our revenue will go up. People will say that this is the media organ which comes out with such news. But I have got it all wrong. What I understood is totally wrong. So if you are a scientist, you should be able to explain each term that you are using. You must have that capacity. You must have that, I'm not saying gift of the gab. You must be able to, at least in plain lay terms, you should be able to explain that. Confirm with the journalist that off the record comments will not be published. Suppose you narrate a story that you have heard somewhere, say in Belgium, say in Sri Lanka, say they are in our own country, Hyderabad or Maharashtra, and that is a trivial thing. And the scientist thinks, this is crucial. It should find space in my article. But no, you actually shared with him in a jovial manner. So you must say, this should not be a part of the content. Provide the journalist with the right written statement. That helps, really helps. So when Principal Sir asked me to come here and share my knowledge with you, I thought, why should I approach the audience as if they were budding writers? Why not look at the other side of the whole picture? Now, early science news, this is not very important for us. There are several things. The first, since we have started from the late 19th century. So this is of course not in English. This came out in Vienna, and you all know that who discovered X-ray, and the X-ray photographs were shared with a journalist, with several physicists, and one physicist showed it to his father, and his father was the editor of a very renowned newspaper there, and that came out in print, and it was so successful, and it was so detailed that one engineer somewhere else, I think it is there in the next slide. Yeah. What's more, an electrical engineer, Mr. Campbell Swinton, had been able to replicate X-ray imaging based on the report from a London newspaper alone. So reports can be so detailed. It's not necessary that the reports are always very short in size, sort of crypted. No, not like that. It could be detailed. But these days, you don't find a lot of space there. So it was a different time. Today we are living in a different time altogether. The atom bomb fell on Hiroshima. Such events always attract a lot of newspaper reporting, as you can easily understand. It was the closing years of the Second World War, and this report in particular that came out in 1946, August 23, from someone who was on board as an official reporter, and he reported in it like this. Of course, over the years, when you look at something, even some mass extinction, it becomes polite with the years, and later on you start thinking that it was not much of a disaster. So living in 2022 and trying to think of 1945, it's not easy. You won't be able to gauge the extension, the depth of the damage that was done by the first atom bomb and even the second atom bomb. So these type of things come. The moon mission, that also attracts a lot of reporting, a lot of communication in media. These are the things. Our own moon mission, that didn't succeed 100% because the lander and the rover was not in proper place, in proper orientation, and that's why it couldn't function. So these things always, science news that creates controversy. There are news that would definitely create controversy, like the one here. This is regarding your gene modification, and you might be, you are relatively kids here, so you will be able to recall one minister came here and he was at the Bose Institute and he was garlanded, and the garland was not of flowers, it was all of brinjal, beguner mala, and those were bitty brinjals. I mean, not necessarily bitty brinjals, they could have bought it from the market, ordinary brinjals. So the minister was jovial enough. He actually accepted the garland. He stood there with the garland for the photographers to have a snap, and then he said, I have not come here to accept this garland, of course. I have something to say from my ministry, and this and this, the procedure went on. So these things create controversy because not all are one. I mean, all scientists don't have the same opinion that gene modification can work for us. Genetically modified food is totally banned in Europe. You must be knowing, totally banned in Europe genetically. And they tried to lure us, the companies tried to lure us, the Indian companies, the Indian farmers at one point. And that's a different story altogether. I won't go into the details of it, but this is of course controversial and it attracts a lot of news reporting. That this is again Kuram, the latest nuclear power plant in India. You must be knowing it. There is always controversy when a nuclear power plant comes up. So this is again food for news reporting. I won't spend much time. Then of course the environment, which is always getting degraded. And we do a lot of talking, we do a lot of writing, but as we say, Hindi mein jaise vinash chal raha hai, so it goes on. It goes on in the same manner as we had seen 10 or 20 years ago. It goes on. So this again creates controversy. Which fact is correct, which fact is not. So these are the things. And science news that are actually sponsored, these are sponsored science news, comes out from the companies. Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine proves 90% effective in latest trials. Excellent, 90%. So this was just handed out by Pfizer. And you took the handout, you came back to your office, sat at your desk, and just wrote what Pfizer wrote. You just change a few words. But see, there are other media organs who do not do similarly. Vox reported, Pfizer claims, see the one word changes the whole perspective. Someone has claimed. I mean, the whole field of science of the particular discipline have not endorsed it. The company claims that COVID-19 vaccine is 90% effective so far. Here is what we actually know. Now they detail what we actually know about it, what has happened, because the company will be reporting only favorable things. That is favorable to them, favorable for their business. All other things they won't be reporting. So these are sponsored news. Hyped up science erodes trust. Here's what researchers can fight back. I mean the same thing, I mean as I said. Science reporting in India, I mean I have taken this particular picture for obvious reasons. I mean more scientists to get employment. PM announces 3-pronged plan. And beside that, there is a photograph of a cricket match going on, a snap from the cricket field. Which news do you think the readers will read actually? So this happens not in India, everywhere. I mean, there's no point in accusing our own countrymen. Everywhere it happens. Had it been USA, it would have been basketball there. Okay, so it happens. You can have space for science reporting, especially when it concerns finance, when it concerns industry, when it concerns politics. You will have a lot of space in newspaper. But how many will actually read that news piece? That has to be actually measured. And even we are not very good with our surveys. We have to be better. Aspiring minds in India, these are always regular thing. Bird flu spread in Kerala. How scientists are trying to tackle these things. These are reported. Now science supplements are slowly disappearing. When I started science reporting, there were quite a number of weekly supplements for science. But those are disappearing slowly. Science pages are gone almost. Because they have only one thing to say, people don't read science. Science is for career only, nothing else. People don't believe this will contribute to the development of our country. No, sorry sir. I mean, I will of course, invite me to a seminar, I'll speak differently. I will say, of course, we have to understand science, the principles of science must be kept in mind. When I come to my office, I'll tell science doesn't bring business. Simple. So off with science, these are disappearing. And in fact, when the country became independent, there are more contributions as far as scientific reporting was concerned. These are slowly disappearing. The case is similar in US. The lamentable scenario, in 1989, over 90 newspapers in the US had weekly science section. By 2013, only 19. But the underlined section is more important. For science reporting, the understanding of scientific studies requires time. You cannot master it overnight. See, if you are reporting sports, as someone had said, you can say Virat Kohli was out LBW. You won't have to explain what LBW is. You won't have to tell that if the leg comes in front of the wicket and actually hinders the ball, no, you won't have to explain it like that. But if you say epigenetics, someone will say, oh, okay, wait. I heard about gene, genetics is okay. I mean, what is this epi thing? I mean, epigenetics like this, something like that. So you have to actually explain what epigenetics is. So as a science reporter, you have to be adept at these things. You have to understand. So, but with the jet set speed of business, I mean, news reporting is no social responsibility these days. Have any of you seen Charulata? You have seen Charulata? Is there anyone who has seen Charulata? No? Satyajit Ray is a known name. I mean the fellow who was running a newspaper, He did it out of his sheer sense of responsibility towards the society. That was no business. But that era is gone. Everything should fetch money every hour. The Sensex should be rising, for me at least. So that should happen. And in this jet set age, understanding of scientific studies cannot happen. This cannot happen so fast. You have to put in time, you have to put in energy, only then it can come out. Language issue in India, it's always there. I mean, one BBC Tamil service professional, he said that when you try to translate the scientific terms in our mother tongue, it gives us a headache, and it's not easy. And in many a seminar you would find, especially in India, if it is a government seminar, especially government-sponsored seminar, they will say language is no problem. I mean, if you have the right content, you have the right approach, language is no problem. And I am the only one to stand up and point out that language is the biggest problem here. Because someone living in Orissa won't be able to understand what they have written in their mother tongue in Maharashtra. Sorry, sir. I am the last one to accept it. So language is the biggest problem, and language is again the beauty of our country. The more advanced the civilization, the more vibrant the civilization, more the languages. I tell it with pride, standing here at Vivekananda Centenary College, I tell it with pride that more languages means more vibrant the society is. How can't we give proper importance to such things, such variety? So this is something very lamentable. This is about, the second point is very important. Newspapers fare no better in reporting science news or features because very often this happens. What the report is only third or fourth hand account of a report from Western newspapers. Now I'll give you a scenario, an example. Suppose the faculty members of Vivekananda Centenary College decides to host a competition on science reporting. What will you do, most of you? You have to submit it in say 7 days. You can submit it from your, take a news from your own discipline, take any information from your own discipline, be it physics, be it chemistry, be it biology, whatever, and you can do the writing say in 400, 300 words. Most of you, what you will do is take up a newspaper, turn to page 7, okay, last Saturday there was a very good news on this type of vaccination being developed, vaccines being developed, new vaccines. Why don't we write about this? Okay. So this is second hand or third hand. And what you are producing is fourth hand. And I don't know how far it goes. So this happens in most of the newspapers, but the journalists are not to blame because not enough money is being poured into the whole system. You are shunning science. You are saying science is for career only, nothing else. But as principals have pointed out the other day, that as Swamiji had said, that knowledge is power, and do you mean to say science is not part of knowledge? So if you wish to be powerful, you have to attach importance to science, and without that, you cannot dream of a developed country. Now this is okay, if you are not bored, these type of lectures are very boring, I know, but I know, see, I have been in your position as students, I know, but just to do justice to what I am supposed to do. I promise, after this no PowerPoint. There is no point in preparing PowerPoint on and on, and presenting it. So there is no point. Now, writing and speaking. Since I have been asked to tell about the features of science writing, science communication. Excuse me. The takeaway factor should be there. I mean, you attend a seminar, your father or mother asks you, "Beta, what have you learned from that seminar?" You said, you shrug your shoulders and say, "Come on, nothing, that was routine. I had to go, so I did go." I mean, this happens all the time. But to have a different experience from today's seminar, I just intend to present a few points and then I will conclude. I promise. Won't bore you for long. So, writing and speaking, making the tools effective. Now, this is the last thing that a communicator wants. You enter an auditorium and you find the audience just snoring. And someone comes and says, "Sir, this happens all the time. You present your lecture, go away. Take the gift that I have given to you." It happens. But put yourself in the position of the speaker and then you will feel the pain. At one point in your life, say when you are beyond 40, beyond 50, like me, of course. I don't think you will grow that much. You will all remain within 30s. So, if you have such an experience, you will say, "Come on, there is no point." You speak in a way that the scientists are speaking. There is no point in presenting anything to the lay person, to the speaker. I have just wasted my time. I could have done something else. Even I could have had samosa in the nearby shop. Now, ego speak. Most of the people would say, no, the earlier slide is irrelevant. I didn't have such an experience. I have been applauded at each and every seminar. No, I don't claim that. For me, it's 50-50 always. I'm not the biscuit. I mean, it's 50-50 scenario. But this actually doesn't happen. You have to remember, unless you master the tools of science communication, this never happens. Audience all over the world love to clap and cheer irrespective of whether they listen to the communication. And that is almost routine, that is almost in order. And at places where they didn't even listen to one sentence of mine, they clap like anything when I finish. So I know what the pain is. Now, someone might come up to you and say, "Okay, you failed several times. I can understand your disappointment. Don't be disappointed. Try this magic formula. You will always succeed in every seminar, in every presentation." Sorry, there is no magic formula. I have learned over the years there is no magic formula. How to make your communication effective? The first thing is, there are 5 W and 1 H in communication. I won't detail out all the W's and H's, but 1 is who, and the H is how. Understand your audience. See, I said in the very beginning that you all are students of science, and that gives me a huge advantage today. I won't have to explain too many things. It's a dedicated audience, sort of. Even if you don't like my lecture, it's a dedicated audience that I have today. Once you understand, but suppose you are explaining something to your grandmother. I mean, grandma, we have an idea in mind that grandmas are there to tell us stories about bygone days, about mythology, about many other things. But today's grandmas are educated. They are professionals. Their profession might be in the banking industry. And you might be an expert in, say laser physics. Okay. Or you might be working in Shah Institute of Nuclear Physics on, say, that Alice thing in Large Hadron Collider, you might be a part of it. Your grandma asks you, what are you actually doing there? You keep going after every 3 months, and when you come back you have nothing to do. You always wonder about, what are you doing there? So if you understand your grandmother's level of education, she might have completed her master's, but the understanding of science that she has is of 6-7 standard, not beyond that. So you have to appreciate that, and in that manner you have to rejig your language accordingly and analyze your content for the purpose of communication. Most of the people, what they do is write an article, then don't even revise it. Even I have been exposed to this type of thing. They come to our office, they say, oh, I worked one night and this is the article you see. And after reading it, I understood that he went through a stormy session for some reason. And the article is not perfectly in order. Not the grammar, not even the science. The statistics is strewn about all over the body of the article, and it should be coming in a neat corner and be presented in a judicious manner, but he hasn't done that. But I'm afraid this is a very big scientist of good repute. He has been in the USA for so many years. Now he is at say any cultivation of science or any other place. So I won't tell him that this is a very bad article, sir. I cannot say. I often change my language, way of speaking, and then say, sir, could this be changed? Do you think this could be a better line? Yeah, Manas, I know you understand. Yes, I wanted to write this line. So as an editor you can do that, but when you are going there as a scientist, you must revise your article, you must analyze the purpose of communication. To whom are you speaking? In Bangla there is a word called Pondito Monno. You are feeling that I am the best pandit in the whole of the world about this. Okay, granted, no fight over this. But the audience that you are addressing doesn't understand all your science. Had they been able to understand, then there was no point of communication, point in doing communication. So you must understand and reanalyze it, determine how much could be presented in a given time. That is also very important. Not like me, heaping everything in one session, not like me. Predetermine the takeaway factor. As I said, when you go out of this auditorium, you reach home, might be having tea with your friends, and they talk, what is the seminar about? You must be able to say at least 1 or 2 words, and that is the takeaway factor. So when you appear as a speaker, you must remember that whatever you have spoken, everything will vanish into thin air. These things will only remain, and these are the takeaway factor. You find takeaway at the counter of many restaurants. In that case, everything is takeaway. You take say a fried rice with some chili chicken, the whole of it is takeaway. You will gulp all of it. But in case of this seminar, this presentation, the small part is only takeaway factor. Conclude and summarize accordingly, which I am unable to do. Create space for further communication. Don't think that is the end of all. 1 or 2 members of the audience will be there who will be writing to you, who will be tweeting you. Sending WhatsApp messages to you saying, sir, this was interesting, but I think there was one fallacy there. Do you think this? I have this in mind. Do you support this or something else? So leave space for that. Now, why did Captain Haddock's juice fly? You must start with such exciting things. Captain Haddock did not drink juice, we all know. But anyway, let's assume that he drank juice. And in the spacecraft, when the artificial gravitation vanished, he was flying and his juice in the glass took the shape of a ball. You could start with such a presentation. Why did such things happen? It happened because there is no gravitation. the only force remaining is the attraction force among the atoms only, or the molecules in this case. So you can start with such thing. Unless you do, people won't be attracted. I mean, it's not a loose ball. I mean, in this cricketing sense, it's not a loose ball, but it's an attractive delivery that you will hook the listeners for later deliberation. You can do in a different manner. You could start like this. You are very dutiful. You are very perfect in everything you do. And you will say an astronomical object consisting of a luminous spheroid of plasma held together by its own gravity. And what does the audience have actually? It's actually a star. So why are you using these words? It's utter nonsense as far as communication is concerned. And as I said, you must understand your audience. Your audience is not for feeding such things. Popular communication reaches all citizens, and it's not limited to any particular person. Those who fund your research, they would also be listening. They are not necessarily scientists. Suppose you are stuck with a project and you don't have any money. This is happening in India right away. Right now it's happening in India. You don't have money. You need funding agencies to be favorable with you. You need to impress them. And might be the chairman who heads the funding agency, his wife or his kids are listening to you. And they might go back to his to his husband, or Papa, and say, Papa, there was such a fantastic presentation today on the such and such channel, and it said of this and this, and it has so many possibilities. Papa also, it's a family thing. Otherwise, Papa wouldn't have listened. But in this case, he listens and says, where did you see it? Okay, is there a YouTube something for this? YouTube file? Okay, now things turn in your favor. So don't just dismiss popular presentation as rubbish. It could work wonders for you. So in a popular way, it might seem imprecise. But tell me, who was imprecise? Sommerfeld or John Dalton? Who was imprecise? John Dalton worked at a particular epoch of time. Sommerfeld, which is fine spectra, was doing his physics in Europe, in Northern Europe, at a different epoch of a time. None of them, are at fault. They understood what was in hand, what tools they were given. With that, they understood what best they could, and that's why they are great scientists. I could say John Dalton, useless fellow, imprecise. He talked about certain tennis balls like thing. No, your presentation could be imprecise, but it should be able to impress. Top flight researcher in a narrow field may be a lay person. This is again important. Suppose a very big institute specializing in many fields, physics, chemistry, several sub-disciplines. One field doesn't really understand the other. So a person from one field can actually present communication to the professionals of the other field, and that should be science communication, and that should be popular communication. This is necessary. Specialist terms should be avoided or at least explained. I have given here an example. Seismic event. Why don't you substitute with earthquake? Why are you fond of saying seismic event? It pleases your ego for that reason. But you are aiming to communicate with the lay person. Myocardial infarction. Come on, use heart attack in the first place. Then you can explain what myocardial is actually. Thoracic cavity. Come on, chest is an easy option. You can later explain that. Lesion. This is an injury actually. So, when you are doing science communication, you should be in a frame of mind that allows you to use popular words, easily understandable words. Now, I put this up from that film, that English,
and that had some very important messages regarding communication. See, this is of course a political thing. Political in the international sense, not a very narrow regional sense. Because the English-speaking people were able to control us, English became the language of science. I mean, as in other fields. But Germany, they also mastered science in a very very good manner, and that's why the German language was necessary to be learned. You know, Satyendranath Bose and Meghnad Shah went to a German teacher at which is now IIEST, Shipur. That German teacher was there. He was advised by his physician to come to a warm country to improve his health, and he chose India. And Satyendranath Bose and Meghnad Shah had to go there regularly to learn German, and they were the first people in the world to translate Einstein's theory, general theory of relativity, of course, not a special one, in English for the very first time. That is still available in Calcutta University book outlet. So German is also an important language. It's not necessary that you have to learn English. Even these days French is becoming very important. There are many good research projects being conducted in France. So we have to talk about among ourselves how to use our Indian languages to communicate science. I mean, these are international languages, we all know. Okay, and next comes right to speak. Sometimes it could be you are writing so that you can speak. Simple sentences, say no to complex and compound sentences. It works wonders in every media. Print, audio, video, your social media, everywhere. Let jargons be elsewhere, not in your script. Create signposts. Don't speak in a monotonous manner like me. Create signposts so that people understand that you are making a transition from one field to the other field. Tell them, okay, we have discussed this much, now we'll go to the other field which is related to this field in this manner. So these are signposts. Spice up your presentation with anecdotes. Anecdotes work wonders. For example, you might say, do you know who was the teacher, who was the fellow who actually inspired Charles Darwin? Can you say, anyone? Darwin had a very limited space in HMS Beagle, and the captain said they were not allowed to carry many books, and most of the books that he carried was by one fellow only. Do you know who he was? He was Darwin's guru. He was Alexander von Humboldt, generally known as a geographer. The number of rivers, valleys, mountains that are named after Humboldt is more than that for any other person in the world. Alexander von Humboldt lived in Austria and Germany. I mean, at that point of time, the boundary was not there like this. So you can start with anecdotes. Use statistics judiciously. No, not like this. So many quintals, tons of rice has been produced, or wheat has been produced this year in India. When I hear that, I would ask you, is that sufficient? If I then put the amount, that the required amount is far more, so we are actually deficient. So use statistics judiciously, count the number of words, pun, humor, etc. are most welcome, but you should be adept in these things. Bridge the gap, be sensitive. Don't be rude to your audience. I mean, the audience also has a level of understanding. So be polite, be understanding. So this is I don't want to elaborate on my achievements. So these are the things, some things we are doing. And this is what I had to say. There is no, you should, after doing everything, the method of science should be there. Without it, scientific mentality cannot come about in your audience. The busy digital world, look at this.
This works, no? Look at how busy. Yeah. So look at this. WhatsApp. In every second, every minute, 60 seconds, 54 million WhatsApp messages are exchanged. WordPress, Twitter, 350, all in millions. Instagram. So this is a very busy communication world, and you all are contributing to it. To make your mark in this field, you have to understand the cardinal principles of communication. This is such a busy field. All over the world, digital sharing is going on. So you have to be firm on your toes. You should be able to understand. Forget all these things. Takeaway could be a message relating to conservation, information on new field that is shaping up, vital info on new drugs, etc. This could be, and of course, anti-superstition facts. So happy communication. Thank you. No more. You won't be able to appreciate how much I enjoyed today. I'm not thinking of the audience. I mean, after 2 years, writing in front of the audience, in person, this can give such joy. Thank you so much for having me here. I can just say the thank you to our chief guest. Just thank you. So now is open for you. So if you have any question in your mind, you can ask, sir. Anybody of you? Anybody? I just told Akash. I was not uttering the son name, so okay. So is the time for the vote of thanks. For that, now I would like to request our Vice Principal Maharaj, Swami Vedanulaka ji, in the podium. Maharaj. Go sit there.
Respected Dr. Manas Pratim Das, we are really indebted to sir for his wonderful talk today afternoon. So on behalf of the college, on behalf of all the teachers, staff members, students, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to sir for enlightening us on various facets of communication, scientific communication. And just we began with various facets like scientists and journalists, and then we came up through various people who contributed towards this idea of proper communication, and ultimately we came up with how your presentation and your communication can become effective. So from all these aspects, it is undoubtedly a very enlightening session. After a long COVID hibernation, we are all back. So hopefully we'll be able to continue with such academic sessions, enriching sessions. And so on behalf of the entire college, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Manas Pratim Das for his beautiful talk. And I also thank all the respected teachers and students for being over here. And we'll be having such programs in future very soon. So please try to attend them, try to learn from these sessions, because much later you will recognize that these were really valuable for your growth and development. Thank you very much.
students should not leave the hall immediately after our respected sir and all teachers leave. Then gradually you must leave the hall in a queue because your attendance will be taken outside. So don't make a mess. Be in your place. You can stand up in regard to the speaker and then just wait.